His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, Jai. ISKCON's founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda ki, Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki, Jai. Prem Se Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadha Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki
Jai.
Shri Radha Krishna Govardhan Shamkund Radhakund Giri Govardhan Ki
Jai.
Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki
Jai.
Shri Mayapur Dham Ki
Jai.
Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki
Jai.
Shri Srinathai Gaura Hari Ki
Jai.
Shri Srinathai Sachi Sutta Ki
Jai.
Shri Giri Govardhan Ki
Jai.
Sankirtan Yagya Ki
Jai.
Go Premanandi
Haribo.
All glories to this Samudavati
Hare Krishna.
All glories to this Samudavati
Hare Krishna.
All glories to this Samudavati
Hare Krishna.
All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga.
He only knows Bhakti Chaitanya Swami Maharaj Ki
Jai! All the devotees, kings.
Jai.
So Hare Krishna devotee. Yes, devotees. So devotees, welcome everyone. So nice to be here with you all. And we will read a couple of verses, even a few verses, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. From Madhya Lila chapter 8. In Madhya Lila chapter 8. Who can tell me, who of you intelligent, experienced, knowledgeable devotees can tell me what is the subject matter of Madhya Lila chapter 8? Who can say? Any ideas? How many of you have read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita? You've read the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita? How many times? Once. You haven't read the whole thing? Vijay, how many times? Okay. Yes, this is Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila chapter 8, talks between Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramananda Roy. And where shall we begin? Let's see. We'll begin somewhere. Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jai Jai Sri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda.
Jai Jai Shri Chaitanya Jai Nityananda
Jai Advaita Chandra Jai Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Jai Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
Yes, so okay, Lord Chaitanya is traveling in South India and he's just met Ramananda Roy, who's a very great devotee. And actually, Lord Chaitanya was recommended to locate him and get his association by Sarvabhauma Bhatta Acharya in Jagannath Puri, where Lord Chaitanya had spent some time before and would later on spend more time. Yes, so Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya told Lord Chaitanya that there's this great devotee Ramananda Roy, and you just must get his association. So let's read a few verses. I'll start with verse 238. I'll read the Bengali, and I'll read the Bengali for the first few verses along with the translations, and then I'll just read translations. So yes, verse 238, Majlila chapter 8. Prabhu kahe, Ayalana shuni tumara guna, Krishna kata shuni shuddha, karete mana. The Lord replied, having heard about your good qualities, I have come here. I have come to hear about Krishna from you, and thus purify my mind. What is special or extraordinary in that statement? The thing is, Lord Chaitanya is speaking and telling the devotee, I have come to hear about Krishna from you, and thus become purified. Normally, you would expect it to be the other way around, that we would be just so happy if we could hear from Lord Chaitanya about Krishna. But Lord Chaitanya, as we just mentioned, has heard something at least from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya about what a super exceptional devotee Ramananda Roy is. So, okay, let's carry on. Verse 239. Yaiche shunilun, taiche dekilun, tomara mahima, Radha Krishna prema rasa, gyanera tumi simha. Now that I've actually seen your glories, what I heard about you is confirmed. As far as the pastimes of Radha and Krishna in a loving mood are concerned, you are the limit of knowledge. In other words, they're in the middle of their discussion, actually, not at the beginning. They've already had a major part. Well, that was verse 239. So many verses were there before, in which sort of the subject matter, the perspective was different, in that Lord Chaitanya, again, he was asking Ramananda Roy, please explain to me. In that case, it was about different levels of Krishna consciousness. Yes. Beginning with Dhaneshvara, that's how it began. And then renunciation of Dhaneshvara. And then all the way on to pure love of Krishna. And then all the way on love for Krishna in the different rasas. Then love for Krishna as found amongst the gopis. Then love for Krishna as found in Srimati Radharani. And then after that, after Ramananda Roy had mentioned that, Lord Chaitanya told him, tell me more. And Ramananda Roy said, my Lord, I don't know anything more. If I'm able to say anything more, it'll be just because you're putting words in my mouth. But he said more. And eventually, you know where he ended up? Love for the Lord in separation. So that was that discussion. It was actually a day or two or something before this discussion, which is just starting now. And anyway, we'll read a few verses and you'll get the idea what this discussion is about. Verse 240. Dasha dinera karakata yavat ami jiva tava tomara sangha chadite nariva. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, to say nothing of 10 days, as long as I live, I shall find it impossible to give up your company. Yes, because, we may not really be so aware yet. I mean, of course, I would assume we've all heard to some degree about the value of the association of devotees. It's truly extraordinary. But what is being pointed out here, really, at least at this particular stage of the discussion, is that there is nothing better than the association of the devotee. So you'll see as we go on. So I'll just read the translations now, basically. So Lord Chaitanya again, you and I shall remain together at Jagannath Puri. We shall pass our time together in joy, talking about Krishna and his pastimes. In this way, they both departed to perform their respective duties. Then in the evening, Ramananda Roy returned to see Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Thus they met time and time again, sitting in a secluded place and jubilantly discussing devotional service by the question and answer process. Very important part of Krishna consciousness. Yes, and even, in some of these discussions, not necessarily here, but here also, but in other, like Srimad Bhagavatam and others, other literatures, you find that it's time for questions. And someone who knows it all already asks a question. And it's not because he doesn't know, but it's just because such a nice subject, he wants to hear the explanation of that particular devotee, or even it may be some form of the Lord, because any one of these topics about Krishna is so multifaceted, and if you really get into it, it's just sort of like endless and bottomless, and just there's no limit. So particularly when advanced devotees talk about these things, generally they all bring out something that you never heard before. But when you hear it, then you think, oh yes, how appropriate that is, that's very nice. Yes, that's one of the important parts of Krishna consciousness. Yeah. So, okay. Text 244. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked the questions, and Sri Ramananda Roy gave the answers. In this way, they were engaged in discussion throughout the night. Throughout the night does not mean until 8 o'clock, or even 9 o'clock, or even midnight. That means right through the night. And just like in Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit was hearing from Shukadev Goswami for 7 days and 7 nights without eating or drinking and without sleeping. And it was never that. Maharaj Parikshit would sometimes sort of doze off, as happens in classes. I wouldn't necessarily say inevitably it happens to at least one person, but it's not unusual that it happens to at least one person. But they just 7 days and 7 nights without break. Shukadev was, Parikshit was asking questions. Shukadev was answering. So now here we go. On one occasion, so now we're going into this particular discussion. On one occasion, the Lord inquired, of all types of education, which is the most important? Ramananda Roy replied, PhD. DBA, at least MBA. No. Listen to this, fasten your seatbelts. Ramananda Roy replied, no education is important other than the transcendental devotional service of Krishna. So there you go. Are you still at school?
Yes.
Okay. You haven't done matric yet? Anyway, okay, you carry on. You don't have to stop here. Yes, okay, next one. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then asked Ramananda Roy, out of all glorious activities, which is the most glorious? Ramananda Roy replied, that person who is reputed to be a devotee of Lord Krishna enjoys the utmost fame and glory. Though we were there near Santon City, the Gal train station, having kirtan from 5 to 6. And, there are quite a lot of people going by. And some, not many, but there were 1 or 2 I noticed. They were a little amused by it. They thought, it's something a bit funny or strange or something like that. And I was thinking, these people, they got a lot to learn about what's important, what's valuable, and what should be focused on and really gone into deeply. because Ramananda Roy says that person who is reputed to be a devotee of Lord Krishna enjoys the utmost fame and glory. So now the next one, verse, what is it, 247? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of the many capitalists who possess great riches, who is the topmost? Ramananda Roy replied, he who is richest in love for Radha and Krishna is the greatest capitalist. The term in Sanskrit and in Bengali here, I didn't read the Bengali, but the term for capitalist or wealthy man is Dhani. Yes, like Dhaneshvara. Dhaneshvara. Capitalists in love for Krishna. 248, and this is a special one. Dukkha madhye kona dukkha haya gurata Krishna bhakta viraha vina dukkha nahi deki para. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of all kinds of distress, what is the most painful? Sri Ramananda Roy replied, listen to this one, everyone. Apart from separation from the devotee of Krishna, I know of no unbearable unhappiness. Whatever, birth, death, old age, disease, losing all your money somehow, or your house getting destroyed, whatever it is. Generally people will think these are real disasters and even unbearable unhappinesses. There was, what was it? Maybe it was 1988 or... Anyway, every now and then there's some sort of financial crisis in the Western world, and it's a whole difficult situation. So the one man, he was one of the richest men in Europe. Suddenly, he was extremely wealthy in the sense he had assets which were worth a lot of money. But cash he didn't have. He could have tried to turn an asset into cash by selling it, like selling a house or something. But, he had some cash, but not much at all. Yes. So then, devotees and friends, listen to this. Then this great financial crisis just sort of exploded on the scene. And he had, I think, many buildings, or anyway, many investments of different sorts, but things which he had not completely paid off yet, but still on paper, the value was more than how much he still needed to pay off. So that's an asset that was counted as an asset. So then this crisis happened, and suddenly all of his buildings became like lost value, down to like about less than half of what they had been worth. And now, do you get the idea? Now, the amount he had to pay off those things was greater than the value. So in other words, he ended up with like €1 billion minus. Because it's one thing to be bankrupt. Well, it's one thing to have no money. It's another thing to have a minus amount of money. And so you know what he did? He was like €1 billion in debt. He committed suicide. From being one of the richest men in Europe. He followed the logic of it. Yeah, so he felt unbearable unhappiness. But Ramananda Roy says, apart from separation from the devotee of Krishna, I know of no unbearable unhappiness. And the question is a question, very important and valuable question, is, as Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Kabe habe bolo se din ama. Kabe means when. When will that day come? Yeah. When will that day come when I will have feelings like that? Yeah. So much attached to the devotees that if one cannot have their association, one becomes sort of hopeless and just, it becomes too much. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then inquired, out of all liberated persons, who should be accepted as the greatest? Anyone like to take a guess what the answer would be? I mean, I would say you should get it. He who has love for Krishna has attained the topmost liberation. Isn't that pretty obvious? It should be. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu next asked Ramananda Roy, among many songs, which song is to be considered the actual religion of the living entity? Ramananda Roy replied, that song describing the loving affairs of Sri Radha and Krishna is superior to all other songs. Yes. Okay. Then Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, out of all auspicious and beneficial activities, which is best for the living entity? Ramananda Roy replied, now can we ask someone to take a guess? One of you scholars. Out of all auspicious and beneficial activities, which is best? What is that? That's a good one. I heard something coming from over here. That's better even. Ramananda Roy replied, the only auspicious activity is association with the devotees of Krishna. But just it happens that in that association there'll be chanting of Hare Krishna. But if you're not in the association of devotees, there's not going to be chanting of Hare Krishna. I mean, unless it's just you on your own. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, what should all living entities constantly remember? See the children.
Remember Krishna, always remember Krishna, never forget him.
The holy name?
Always remember Krishna, never forget him.
Okay. The chief objects of remembrance are always the Lord's holy name, qualities, and pastimes. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu further inquired, out of many types of meditation, which is required for all living entities? type of meditation? Meditation on?
Mala.
Okay, very good. The chief duty of every living entity is to meditate upon the lotus feet of Radha and Krishna, which means the Mahamantra, because it's Krishna, Radha and Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, where should the living entity live, abandoning all other places? Sorry? That's very good. You're the first one to just get it right. Others were sort of approximate that you got it. So where should one live? He should live in the holy place known as Vrindavan, or Vrajabhumi, which means the land of Vrindavan, where the Lord performed his rasa dance. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, out of all topics people listen to, which is best for all living entities? Basically, yeah. Hearing about the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna is most pleasing to the ear. Excuse me, okay. There's just two more verses, I think. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, among all worshipable objects, which is the chief? The chief worshipable object is the holy name of Radha and Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra. Let's see. Yeah, okay, that's the last one. And what is the destination of those who desire liberation and those who desire sense gratification? Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked. Ramananda Roy replied, sure, listen to this. Those who attempt to merge into the existence of the Supreme Lord will have to accept bodies like those of trees. And those who are overly inclined towards sense gratification will attain the bodies of demigods. Hare Krishna. I mean, it depends actually, but at best. So there you see, devotees, some really important questions. I mean, like, certainly some of the most, if not just the most, important of all questions. Really, really nice. So we should familiarize ourselves with this discussion. We should familiarize ourselves with the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, actually. But I'm just going to go back and read one of them again, one of the verses, and say a few words about that. Verse 248. Dukkha madhye kona dukkha haya guratara Krishna bhakta viraha vina dukkha nahi deki para. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, of all kinds of distress, what is the most painful? What's the answer? Yes, thank you. Sri Ramananda Roy replied, apart from separation from the devotee of Krishna, I know of no unbearable unhappiness. In other words, there's nothing particularly unhappy or unpleasant. Anything else which is thought to be, or is actually, somewhat unhappy, unpleasant, it doesn't matter that much. Like I tell you one tiny little story about a devotee family in, I think, Azerbaijan, which is one of these, obscure countries down kind of in between Turkey and Afghanistan. You know what I'm talking about, that sort of area. Yeah, Azerbaijan. But they're devotees there. It's a Muslim country. And one day, the son, who's like mid-20s, he started becoming sick, and then he really became sick. And he became bedridden. And it was like really bad. So the doctor came and, did some diagnosis, testing a few things, took the mother aside and said, bad news. I think he's only got about 2 weeks to live. There's a family of devotees, and like really staunch devotees, like super duper devotees, really. So yeah, bad news, sorry. But he's only got a couple of weeks to live. Off went the doctor, the mother went back in to see the son. You know what she said? Good news. You've only got 2 weeks. And you can go back to God.
Sure.
And the boy said, wow, that's great. He picked up his japa beads, put on a recording of Prabhupada chanting, and he was just into it. Most people, when they're told like that, it's just, it's an unbearable unhappiness, at least initially. Yes, right. So, there's a shortish purport by Srila Prabhupada. Concerning this, the Lord states in the Vedic literature, Mam anarajya dukarta kutumba sakta manasa satsanga rahito martyo vrida seva parichuta, which means a person who does not worship me, who is unduly attached to family, and who does not stick to devotional service, must be considered a most unhappy person. Similarly, one who does not associate with Vaishnavas, or who does not render service to his superior, is also a most unhappy person. And there's no verse number, no reference given, which indicates, it's from a Vedic literature. It indicates it's from some Vedic literature which has been lost in the course of time in Kali Yuga, because, our friends, the Muslims, anyway, don't tell them I said this. When they invaded India, they destroyed. Well, if you've been there, you've probably noticed in the north there are no old temples. They don't exist. But you go to the south and you get these really old temples, big and really old temples. And so they destroyed temples, and they destroyed a lot of Vedic literature. Yeah. So, yes. Yeah, so the point is that I imagine it's a quotation from one of the previous acharyas who just says, it is stated in the Vedic literatures, this, what we read. But there's no reference, and that literature or that part where the verses is no longer existent. There is also the following statement in the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, 1.5.54. Swajivanadikam prartyam Sri Vishnu Jana Sangata Vichedena Kshanam Chatra Na Sukam Sam Labhamahe. Out of all kinds of desirable things experienced in the life of a living entity, association with the devotees of the Lord is the greatest. When we are separated from a devotee, even for a moment, we cannot enjoy happiness. Yes. So, yeah, I had one interesting experience along these lines. I was just a new devotee in London. It was 1973, during the summer, northern summer of 73, means sort of June, July, something like that. And we were doing our program, which was Harinam, down the main street of London, for about 5 hours a day, 6 hours, sometimes more. Yeah. And one of us had to distribute back to Godheads with the party, but the party is moving. And you stop a person, you've got to speak to them for a minute and get them to take a magazine, give some Lakshmi, and then you got to catch up with the party. Somehow or other I got caught up with some person and I just couldn't get away. Like for 20 minutes and the party just had gone. And that person didn't take anything. And then I was approaching person after person. No one would take anything. And I was trying and trying. Nobody took anything for at least half an hour. But I just kept trying. And it was just so, I was just very new devotee, just like 6 months or something. I reached the point, I was almost crying, because no one would take anything. I was just trying again and again and again. And I was thinking, oh, this is too terrible. And then suddenly I heard, coming from the distance, the sound of the Harinam party. And it was just like, oh, the relief. The relief. It was just so wonderful having the association with the devotees. So I just joined the Harinam party, carried on. So, the association of devotees. When I first went to the Russian-speaking area of the world, was Latvia, I went first. And in the temple, there's a big temple there. But the thing is, apart from 2 or 3 devotees, nobody spoke a word of English. Not actually a word. And I didn't speak a word of Russian. Not even yes, no. Nothing. But, and I stayed there in that temple for, a week or something like that. And the devotees and I got on so well, really well, even though we couldn't understand each other at all. Oh yeah, it was just so nice. We use sign language, yeah, and pointing to things. But just being in the company of the devotees was just so nice, so wonderful. Yes, right. So anyway, you could look through these things if you've got access to Chaitanya Charitamrita, and just consider. There's like, I don't know, not so many. I think it's maybe 15, 14 or 15 of these verses. Of this, what is the best or the worst, and then the answer. And we can meditate on these things and try and cultivate that appreciation. I remember the first time I read this verse, years and years and years ago, like what, in the 80s it was, or maybe even, no, it was actually in the 70s. I read this and I thought, what? Apart from separation from devotee, there's no unbearable unhappiness. But, as time goes on, if you think about these things, and particularly, what helps one to realize and really get it clear is if you have enough association with non-devotees, and particularly the more miserable and undesirable types of non-devotees, and you realize, what these people are like. Such unfortunate people. Then the contrast between the non-devotees and the devotees becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Yeah. And the undesirability and just the lack of enjoyment in the association of non-devotees just becomes so clear. Yeah. So devotees who work in an office, like with a whole lot of people, I advise them, get your own little corner and move the partitioning around. So, you're out of the way. And, you can't be out of the way all the time, but as much as possible. Yeah. And quietly play some bhajan, kirtan, and have, a screensaver of pictures of Krishna, like that. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki
Jai.
Shri Ramananda Roy ki
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Premanande.
Hare.
So now, any words of wisdom, Namacharya Prabhu? Additions, subtractions?
No, Maharaj. But I can say that I really like the association of devotees, and not to say that I'm so exalted, but I really like Harikatha. No matter where Harikatha is by leader or a guru, I try my best to attend, and I try to hear attentively. So that's the only thing I can do, Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you. That's very nice. That's really nice. And I see it actually with you. You're always there. You are always there. It's great.
Also, Kishori actually reminded me that there's a program that we we have to attend.
What an excellent one.
Yes.
Maharaj, one more questions I was going to ask you, but you already just mentioned it in the class now. How would you know when you're not appreciating devotees enough? And one of the ways is, as you mentioned, when you're not in the presence of devotees. And if you feel you're not appreciating them enough, then you'll tend to sort of try and appreciate them more.
Well, if you're not appreciating them enough, then we have to cultivate appreciation, actually. But, if it's up to our conditioned natures, we will find devotee association, at least sometimes, sort of, it could even be annoying, but at least, we'd rather get away than be in the company of the devotees and do something else. Yeah. Sometimes, I've had a number of experiences, a number of experiences of a specific phenomenon. It's very specific, that some devotee has had some trouble with some other devotee. Like really something which has been very unpleasant for them, and just really, And they've come and told me, it's happened a number of times, that I find the association of the non-devotees better than the association of the devotees. The non-devotees have better qualities than the devotees.
Sure.
Number of times, devotees have said that, like specifically that to me. Means they're in spiritual trouble. Yeah. Because, the poor old non-devotees, if you sort of, how to put it, you scratch my back, I scratch your back. If you scratch their back, they'll be very nice with you in a material way. But as soon as you sort of don't scratch their back or do something the opposite to scratching them, then their lower natures come out. So that's very superficial. We have to try, when we're with devotees, we should try, at least from time to time, to consider, who is this devotee? And what is the consciousness of this devotee? How does this devotee conduct himself or herself? And really, try to analyze in a positive, appreciative mood. And then if you do that, you'll see, gosh, this devotee, look, this devotee does nice service. This devotee chants nicely and enjoys taking part in the programs. And then, when you see the qualities like that, then you can really appreciate the devotees. Yeah. But our problem, one of the many, is that we're very good at appreciating ourselves. Even if we don't have much at all, maybe we have nothing worthy of appreciation, but we can appreciate ourselves. But other people, we're very good at seeing their faults. This is conditioned mentality. Yeah, that even if I cannot do better than others, in my mind I will think I'm doing better than others. And then I get a mental type of pleasure. So we need to do like this. We need to cultivate appreciation of devotees, because it's not whatever. It could be give you a gift. It could be just pay you a Krishna conscious compliment, or appreciate that you did some service nicely, something like that. When devotees sort of extend themselves to ourselves, to us, even a little, to help us, and like that, we should appreciate. We should have gratitude. And when you have gratitude, the next step is reciprocation. If you don't reciprocate, means the gratitude level, when someone does, like, for example, Damodar Prasad Prabhu, when he gives us some Mahaprasadam, we should appreciate it. And not just think, oh, okay, some more Mahaprasadam. But we should really appreciate it. It's very nice of them. And then have some gratitude. And then, if the gratitude is not sufficient to stimulate reciprocation, it means we're not very grateful. Yeah. Because it becomes spontaneous. If the level of gratitude is of a certain greatness, then a person will just automatically express, be thankful and reciprocate. Yeah. Yes. So therefore, this is something we have to cultivate. Appreciating devotees means we have to look at them and see what nice qualities he or she has. And that's one of the good things, like Namacharya Prabhu 5 minutes ago was appreciating Mataji Kishori for telling him, reminding him of when there are programs. So when you're at close quarters with another devotee, there's a possibility of becoming familiar and just, it becomes kind of an ordinary relationship. But actually, if you observe your partner, your spouse, and how they are, for example, looking after the altar nicely, cooking nicely, offering the food nicely, keeping the place nice, things like this. You're at close quarters with a person very, very regularly. Then there's great opportunity for appreciating. And if we chant nicely, then that propensity for appreciating will be enhanced. If we don't chant nicely, it'll be lessened. Chanting refines the consciousness and brings out sort of deeper aspects of consciousness. Is that okay? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Any questions from the Gurukul? No?
I wanted to ask you something that is not relevant to the class, but I wanted to ask, how do you think people say that somebody that leaves a body, they run back to body? So I want to know what guarantee is there that they come back to the.
Yeah. Well, I occasionally put up little things on TikTok. Yeah.
Because even the Pandavas had a problem, especially with them all the time.
Yeah.
But they had some issues also, it didn't go straight.
Yeah. Okay, anyway, that's sort of another thing. But I was going to say that on this one TikTok I put up, just maybe it was yesterday or a couple of days ago, I quoted a verse from the 6th canto, Story of Ajamil, 2, or was it 2:148? it's either 2148 or 2248, where Shukadev Goswami says, first of all, in this one verse, that this Ajamil was so bad, he did so many bad things. But somehow or other, at the end of his life, he chanted the name of Narayan, and he went back to Godhead. And Shukadev Goswami says, so therefore, if someone very sincerely chants the names of the Lord regularly from their heart, how can there be any doubt that they'll go back to Godhead? So that's a sort of a simple rule of thumb. If someone is really, very seriously practicing, particularly for many years, and, then they come, the time of death comes, it's very unlikely that they will not go back to Godhead.
Unless they're thinking of Krishna at the time of death.
Sometimes, in fact, oftentimes, when people leave their body, unless they're in like an accident or something, it's just, leave the body. One second, they're in just consciousness. Next second, they're finished. Otherwise, generally what happens with people is they go into a state of unconsciousness as the body starts turning off, switching off. The consciousness becomes withdrawn, and they go into a, unconscious state. So Prabhupada made the point that even if a devotee at the time of death is not able to remember the Lord, but for so many years they've sincerely been devotees, Prabhupada said that then Lord Chaitanya will force his way into their minds at the time of death and take them back to Godhead. So it's not just like mechanical that if someone is dying, but there's, a devotee, like a sincere devotee, but somehow or other there are no other devotees around to chant, and they become unconscious and then they pass away. So, they may not have been chanting. It's not quite as mechanical as that. The Lord is watching. And if the devotee's been sincere for some period, like a good period of time, he'll take them back to God. So, we're all in that boat. Some of us, like some of us, maybe, according to the law of averages, we may be closer to that time than others. But who knows? Who knows? How many children died today?
Yeah.
I'm sure plenty of them did. Yeah. So, it's according to the law of averages, people who are older, you can just say, well, they're going to die before those who are younger, but you never know. So therefore we should just carry on and just do our best. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay. So, okay. The Shringa Pranam. Let me sing. Could I have a pair of kartals? Please.
Good. Yes.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Namaste